Hello, it's Phil Croshaw here, and we're again live today. It's the 24th of August. I had to check that. It's the 24th of August, so we're 24 days in now to the 31 days of live streaming here on Facebook, YouTube, and Live Streamers Association sites. And today, my guest is a chap who needs very little introduction, but I'm going to let him do that in a minute. So here's the intro. And we'll meet Sam in a minute.
I want to be there and baby dance the night away. I let my head down if I want. Don't you just get tired chasing fame and being pretty all the time? Doesn't sound like fun. You can do better. Let me show you what a good time looks like. You can do better. You can do better. Let me show you what a good time looks like. You can do better. I dare you to be wilder. Let me show you what a good time looks like. My shoes off if I want. Let yourself be free and maybe you will find that there is more to life than being pretty. Honey, let's just face it. Baby, let your head down, be a little wilder. Baby, kick your shoes off, you don't have to hide it. Baby, let your head down, be a little wilder. Baby, kick your shoes off, don't hide it. I don't fit into your box, beauty queens without no flaws. You can do better. I dare you to be wilder. I don't fit into you.
Okay, enough of that. I'm delighted to welcome Sam. I wish I could have shown what he was up to whilst. No, not that. I wish I could have shown what he was up to whilst that music was playing. He was definitely in party mood and really obviously enjoying that track. So today I am really, really seriously, genuinely delighted to be welcoming Sam Fitton to the show. As he says there, he's a magician and speaker, but he's also an awful lot more than that. But you know what? He knows himself a lot better than I do. So Sam, tell us all about yourself, sir.
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me. I mean, my story starts at birth, really, as most people's does. So back in 1988, I'm only kidding. I'm not going to go year by year here. But yeah, no, thanks for the introduction, Phil. My name's Sam Fitton. I'm a professional magician and speaker by trade, which obviously since March has been completely flipped on its head. And now I'm doing all sorts, really. Lots of exciting projects on the books, from prop design and building to website stuff to immersive stuff. Yeah, you name it. But really, my business started maybe 11 years ago now, nearly 12 years ago, as a professional magician. And from that led into working quite heavily in the corporate sector, then in the wedding industry, and still in the wedding industry and corporate world. But then that led into basically speaking, providing corporate training, leadership training, and that sort of thing. So yeah, so there you go. That's me in a nutshell.
So obviously very politically sensitive in the fact that you've worked with Manchester United and Manchester City.
Yep. Absolutely. So you've been rooting around my Facebook, haven't you? So
I have. I do my research, mate.
Yeah. So to be honest, I started a few years ago. The first team I worked with was United, which was their Christmas party going back about 5-6 years ago. Because United have multiple different Christmas parties, so they'll have one for staff, they'll have one just for players and their family, and then they have like a bigger, and then they have a mixed one as well. So I performed at the players one about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now even. Yeah, it was 6 years ago. And then 5 years ago as well. So they booked me the following year, which was great because the following year I walked in and Juan Mata, who's one of the nicest people in the world, by the way, genuinely lovely guy, literally saw me coming through the door, pointed at me, went, "Sam Fitton, best magician in UK." And I thought, I'll have that. Thank you very much. Literally went up to him and went, "I'm having that on my website." He went, "You can have it." I was like, "Brilliant. Thank you."
Can you do it again? Just do it on video. I'm not being cheeky, but
You know what? I absolutely wish, but the type of event that they are, obviously, you sign NDAs going through the door.
Yeah,
You're given
yeah,
a
I can
pat
imagine.
down. Not even joking. You go through a metal detector, you get a pat down, and you have your phones taken off you. So we couldn't use our phones. So that was just kind of event. So I'd love to have got it on photo, on video. I'd love to have had a photo with him, but just wasn't to be at that sort of event. But yeah, so from then on, I worked with City. I did City's Christmas party, and they done that twice as well. So they often have the players and all the staff in one venue, which is, it just always goes off. Because at the time, Vincent Kompany was captain, and he like fancied himself as a DJ. So that was always like, he was always like DJ, and it was a bit mental, really. And then from that on, it's just kind of, things have just kind of grown in a sense that City asked me to basically be presenter and teach some casino cheating stuff to players. In fact, my brief. This was my brief, right? My brief was, can you teach the players a skill without them needing that skill, but it can't involve a magic trick? So I was like, right, you do realise you've set me something like semi-impossible there. You want me to teach them a skill in less than 5 minutes, or only 5 minutes. I've got to teach them a skill in less than 5 minutes. But they don't necessarily need to have that skill, but they need to be able to demonstrate it. And it can't be a magic trick that makes it look like they've got that skill. So I was like, right, okay, thanks very much, folks. And they threw me that curveball on the morning of the filming, which wasn't the brief that I was initially set. So, so
a great test of your creativity. And I bet you came up with something, didn't you?
Yeah, we came up with quite a bit, actually. And big shout out to Merrick Laporte, who's also a lovely guy. He's amazing. He can do loads of magic already. Like, it's just the French. They're so good at magic. So he literally picked up everything really quickly. So luckily, actually, we got some really cool footage and had a right good laugh as well.
Is that true, actually? Is that true that the French, or is that just you joking?
Do you know what? It's me semi-joking, but the French have got such a rich heritage with magic. Most modern magic has come out of France. It's just insane. Like, honestly, wow. I know so many amazing magicians, card magicians, and who are French. It goes way back. But yeah, I just think their kind of performance and just even the way it's just, I don't know why, but I've every time I come across a French magician, they're always mind-blowingly good. Them and the Koreans are insane as well. Like, absolutely amazing at magic. Okay,
so take me back then to give or take 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And you, like millions of us, suddenly see this whole situation unfolding at a scarily rapid pace. At what point did you realize that this was not just serious on a health level, but serious in terms of the impact it would have on our businesses?
Oh, I think I probably noticed way before the government did. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way or in an insulting way to the government. Maybe I do, actually. But I realized it because in about mid-February, all of the big companies that had hired me to do speaking events later on in the year pulled the plug. And that, for me, especially when, a client for late May, mid-September and November basically pulled the plug and said, we're not doing those events. And so for me in mid to late February, that was a bit of a, hang on a minute, this is weird. Why would they be pulling this? That doesn't make sense unless they knew we were going to be in this for the long haul. So luckily, and I say luckily, I kind of had a bit of an insight into what was going to happen before it happened, before the government had told the public, before they told the police, whoever, because all these major companies, obviously their job is to know what's going to happen in the world to a degree. They have departments specifically in place to kind of forecast and work out whether things are going to go ahead.
Yeah, managing risk and such like.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're talking about international events where you're bringing people from all over the world, thousands of people. These departments have worked it out quicker than obviously the government had. They were pulling the plug on these events. So I was going, oh God, hang on a minute. If an event for September's just been pulled, this has got to be serious. And then obviously once the government announced that it was a big deal and that they were going to kind of I suppose, forced lockdown and shut venues, that was when obviously the domino effect kicked in, and all the businesses that were a little bit smaller, that don't have those big departments that can do all that behind the scenes, they all started to follow suit naturally. And so, yeah, like a domino sort of effect, you know, the big ones go first and then it knocks onto the littler companies. So, yeah, that's when I noticed about mid-February.
And then, of course, you got a double, triple whammy or whatever, didn't you? Because you also do quite a lot of weddings.
Yep.
And closely followed by, you can't have conferences anymore and you can't have events anymore. Oh, by the way, you can't get married anymore either.
Yeah.
So that also then came along to kick you where it hurts, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I perform at maybe now at the most about 60 weddings a year. I have done up to 120, but I now keep it around 60 because it's a nice number. You get to concentrate on your couples and really like deliver a really nice, you know, bespoke, good, high quality performance with lots of energy. So I don't tend to take on too many weddings, but they still provide quite a good amount of income for my business. And so obviously, as soon as, you know, I saw that the venues and these big companies were closing, I realized, hang on, the first thing that's going to go here is weddings. Now, I kind of made that leap in my own head because I realized that weddings aren't very dissimilar to very large scale corporate events. People fly from all over the world to come to them. They're normally quite intense events. You're bringing lots of people together. They're normally in close proximity to each other as well. They're having to work together, or, you know, and weddings are very similar in that regard, that, you know, people fly from all over the world. Weddings, you know, people are hugging, they're kissing, they're interacting, they're eating together, they're spending all day together, sometimes even in the same room, much like some corporate events. And so I thought weddings are going to get pulled pretty quickly. They're going to have to be. And so luckily, as someone who was planning to get married this year and had it all booked in place for early May, you know, I chatted to my other half, Claire, and you know, we made the hard decision to postpone our wedding way before the government had even thought about weddings or closing venues, which kind of gave us a little bit of an advantage because it meant we were able to book for next year. But a lot of couples weren't so fortunate. I mean, to put it into perspective, around 45 of my couples who were booked in for this year between March and the end of October have now postponed to 2021 or 2022. So I have lost business without a shadow of a doubt. However, luckily, a lot of it is being pushed into next year and the year after. So, you know, this year is going to be tough, but next year hopefully should make up for that. Fingers crossed.
So as long as the business comes back, you could say it's quite a nice holiday for you.
Yeah,
as long
to be
as
honest,
the business comes back.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going to lie. It has been. It's a double-edged sword, without a shadow of a doubt. Because although I've had the time which I wouldn't normally have to work on projects that I wanted to work on for a long time, I've also got no income. And as someone who, you know, was limited, kind of was limited company. Was self-employed through that company, I was entitled to absolutely zero funding from any government source. So, you know, there was no support for people like me. We literally fell straight through this gap that the government was ignoring. You know, unlike a lot of my self-employed friends who obviously got self-employment grants, and then obviously the employed people who were furloughed at maybe 80%, I can understand how for those guys it did feel like a holiday because you were still getting the majority of your pay and having the time off. And I know a lot of businesses have started in that time because, well, I've got 80% pay and I've got, well, nothing to do. So, you know, putting that money, obviously, spare change you've got from running your life and your household and your family and whatnot, you've got this time on your hands to do something. Whereas for people like, I suppose, me, who kind of fell through that crack, and you're also very creatively driven, you know, it's actually quite a difficult time as well because my mind still wants to be performing. And to some degree, I think almost addicted to it. And I think this is something that I don't think has been covered particularly well. But I know lots of creative individuals who are having a really rough time at the moment, certainly rougher than me mentally, because I don't think we realised how, and I'm going to use the word addiction. I don't think it's the right word, but maybe motivated is a better word, but how motivated or how addicted we were to performing. And if you pull that away, that adrenaline rush that we're used to getting every, you know, few days has gone. And so that creative spark is, you know, dwindles. And, you know, you end up with a lot of time on your hands and staring at walls. And that's really hard for creative minded people.
Yeah, I think, gosh, I think that's so true. And I'd imagine it's relatively common, like you
Mm,
say, amongst creative people. But I
yeah,
guess I don't know the science about it, but I would imagine that when you're performing, I suspect that there's all sorts of endorphins released,
absolutely.
isn't there? And
Oh,
that's the stuff that gives you the high, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Everything fires. Even it doesn't matter how well scripted you are as a performer, whether you're a magician or a dancer it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how dialed in that performance is. Every time you step on a stage, you step in front of people, speak in front of people, you get that rush. Obviously it varies in size depending on various different factors, but even just the smallest amount of it just, I suppose, keeps you going a little bit. And you need it. I didn't realize that I needed it. I didn't realize that I needed to perform. And luckily, this has given me a little bit of a rush because this is some sort of a performance. I know it sounds weird, that, right? I know it sounds weird, and I know the audience may or may not be watching right now. I have no idea. But, this is some sort of a performance. And so I'm getting that little bit of a kick that I am in need of. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds bonkers saying it, but I honestly, I think, it'd be a really interesting piece of research if someone more intelligent than me could look into it, because
yeah, I mean, live streaming is is a whole new level. It's almost like online. It's the online version of public speaking, isn't it?
yeah, completely.
And it's the jeopardy and the uncertainty. And I mean, just as a context of that, I got up this morning and I've got no internet signal on my phone. Went downstairs, sure enough, the router's going, nah, I've given up for the day, onto Virgin Media. What the hell's going on? Oh, there's a fault, and then your mind's racing because you're thinking, right, I've got this live stream to do.
It's not my fault, Virgin.
I've got this. I've got this client to sort out, and I've got this live stream to do. And then you're thinking, oh, could I do the live stream on my phone? Well, I probably could, but then is the 4G here good enough to be able to handle it? Fortunately, it came back, but yeah, I mean that those sort of situations do occur, and they do give you that. They do give you that buzz. Yeah. So, how did you start in magic? How did you get into it, and how did it become such a key part of your life? Was it a sudden recognition and a sudden road to Damascus moment, or was it a gradual thing?
Oh, do you know, there definitely was a moment, and I probably have the strangest story of how I got into magic. I reckon this story outdoes any story anywhere in the world. I guarantee it, right? Because it's the most absolutely bonkers story. So when I was 9 years old, I've worn glasses all my life, by the way. I wear the world's strongest prescription contact lenses. And I'm not even joking. Like, if they were any stronger, they just refuse to make them. Yeah. They cost me a fortune, these bloody contact lenses, right? So I'm blind as a bat, right? Have been worn glasses since I was 18 months old. So when I was about 9 years old, the optician turned around and said, "Look, we found a problem with one of your eyes, and it needs correcting." It was a bit like a squint, one eye like that, yeah. So basically, when your eyes do that, except this was very gradual, and they were like, well, this muscle's going to tighten over time. It's going to get worse and worse as you get older, so you're going to need it operated on now to stop this problem when you're older. So as a 9-year-old, and speaking to my parents, I was like, yeah, all right, then I'll go for it. So not really knowing what it entailed, right? Obviously, you're 9 years old, right? You're just interested in jumping in puddles and playing with cars. So, anyway, we're on the way to the, long story short, we're on the way to the hospital to have this operation, and my parents had promised me that I could have anything I wanted from this toy shop. It's called Daisy and Tom's in Manchester, up to the price of £20. That was the limit.
I remember that place, actually.
Yeah,
wasn't
it's great.
Was it next to? Was it?
Yeah.
Yes, on Deansgate. Yeah.
Yeah, next to near Kendall's, or was Kendall's.
Yeah, in the old days of shops.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was on like a paradise for children. It was like,
it was. I remember
it was kind of like a mini Harrods. It was like a multi-story kind of toy shop. It was incredible. Yeah. And anyway, I ran into this shop like I say, we're on the way to the hospital here to have the op, and this was my treat for going through with it. And I ran into this toy shop. I ran around looking for the most expensive thing up to the price of £20 that I could get. And I ran to the back of the shop, and there's this guy there from the Magic Circle doing like this coin trick on a table at the back of the thing, you know. And I was quite a smart kid, and I couldn't work out how the hell he was doing this trick. And I just said to Mum and Dad, that's what I want. Because it's just, for lack of a better term, just pissing me off. Just need to know how that's done. And, you know, my mum watched it and she was like, I have no idea. Anyway, there's your 20 quid. There's your magic trick. The deal was I wasn't allowed to open this until after the op. Right? Had to go through with it. So anyway, we get down there. Now, I didn't really realise until I think the moment I had to go through with this that it involved removing my eyes.
God's sake.
I know, right? I told you, no one has this story, right? So, yeah, they had to remove my eyes to do this operation, which makes complete sense when you're talking about the muscles behind the eyes, because how the hell are they going to do it otherwise?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I went through with this operation, came out of surgery 5 hours later, and to prove that it had worked and that I could see and they hadn't accidentally blinded me during the operation, I had to open my eyes. Now, I'm sure in your life you've got something in your eye, you know, a bit of dust or a bit of sawdust, and you've and your eye shuts, and you can't really help it, but it shuts. Yeah. Right. Now imagine having both your eyes out. Right. So you're honestly involuntarily your eyes just lock shut. Right. And I could not open them for the life of me. And it took a nurse prizing my eye open in order for me to see. So anyway, she prized my eye open, and for the 2 seconds my eye was open so she could check it, all I could see in the background was my dad playing with this new magic trick. Right? Yeah, there it is, banging this bloody thing, trying to get it to work, right? And then my eye locked shut. Right? And it stayed shut for 2 weeks.
Whoa. So
I had to wait 2 weeks with the last thing that I saw being my dad knowing how that trick works, and I didn't. And so that's how I got into magic. And I think it's because I had to wait 2 weeks to know the secret of something. And I think going through something like that as well, especially as a kid, just stuck with me. I mean, as you can tell, like I can recount the whole thing. I can tell you what the nerves were wearing. I can tell you what perfume smelled like. It was so vivid, like those memories. And that's how I got into magic. And so that was kind of the moment where I went, no, I need to know, like, and it started like every kid, I guess. You just want to know how it's done. But then it just kind of grew and grew. And, you know, I started practicing. I got hold of a book that was in my school library, primary school library, and started learning tricks out of that. And then I went to high school. And then in my first year of high school, I was a bit of a geek, I suppose is what you'd call me. You know, I had ginger hair. I had glasses like jam jars. And I was good at science, you know. So I was the literally proverbial geek. And quite literally, like better than your little cartoon on the pre-thing, definitely. He's not Ginger, I'm Ginger. I used to get called Dexter because I like Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory. So so that's what I was known as, really, until I started doing magic. And I started performing magic for people. And all of a sudden I became the cool kid that did magic. And that's when I kind of realized very quickly that actually this thing that I've learned inadvertently actually has the power to change how people perceive me. Yeah. Which is pretty mental as a 13-year-old to go, hang on a minute. Yeah. And that's what I did. So all the way through high school, I practiced magic. I got pretty damn good at it. Certainly above my age grade, if you will, for what people should know or learn when they're a kid. You know, I was I grew fast as a kid as well. So my hands grew massive and I could do proper card tricks and stuff. And I could palm things and hide things and just put the practice and hours into it. And subsequently I'm crap at football, but I'm really good at shuffling cards. So yeah, that's literally how I got it. That's amazing. How it started. And to be honest, the pressure of high school made me even better. So At what point did you think that either one, I can make a living out of this, or two, I want to make a living out of this? Yeah. Was it a hobby, or was it always you wanted to be the number one? Yeah. Well, I think I don't think I've ever wanted to be number one. I don't think unless I was at school. I think during high school there were a couple of other kids that did magic, and they would always be like, "Oh, this guy's better than you," blah blah blah, whatever. And so there was a little bit of competition, like there always is between kids. But I've never really wanted to be the best at magic. I don't think. I mean, I'd rather just put on a show that my audience loves. That's more important to me. It doesn't really bother me being known for being the best at something, but certainly the audience walking away and going, "That was an amazing show," that means something to me.
Yeah,
definitely. Whereas there was something you just said then, actually. What did you say? You said, do you ever want to be number one? What was it before that?
Yeah. Did you ever want to be number one, or turn your hobby into a career?
Turn it into a career. That's it. So,
make a living from it rather than just having fun doing it.
Yeah. So this is the. I suppose this is when the moment, I can remember the moment where I thought, hang on, I can make money out of this. I was 14 years old, believe it or not, when I got one of my first gigs, paid gig in a restaurant just outside of my hometown of Ramsbottom. And it was a restaurant called the Red Hall Hotel. It's still there, actually, except now it's a big wedding venue and, fancy, whereas back then it was just basically a restaurant and some rooms above it. And the guy who owned it basically had me come in for a couple of hours and work the tables. And I just thought, I'll do it for a tenner, 20 quid, whatever. At the time I was, I didn't have a job. I was a kid. So I went in and I spent a couple of hours doing some card tricks, and then he gave me 50 quid and I went home. And to a 14-year-old, having a 14 quid for doing card tricks seemed absolutely mental. And I remember my dad at the time, actually, I remember coming home with this envelope with the cash in it. And my dad seeing it and just being like, I won't tell you what he said, but I don't think he could believe that you could make money doing it. And I don't think I did, really, until it happened. And then I thought, hang on a minute, if I could make 50 quid. Like, don't get me wrong, if anyone's watching this thinking, he does 2 hours for 50 quid, that's cheap. I don't anymore. I was 14.
We all have to start somewhere, mate.
But to a 14-year-old, that was like amazing.
Yeah.
So I kind of on and off did gigs back then for like family friends or friends of friends or stuff like that. I didn't really advertise myself. Obviously, I had business cards designed and stuff like that, but never gave them out to anyone. I was 14. Who was going to give them to me? Gym teacher. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we got an event coming up. Here you go, Mr. Matthews. Take this card. I was 14. Like, so. But then as I got older, obviously, by the time I was 16, 17, certainly like then in college, I was proactively kind of, putting my name out there. I had business cards in the local chippy, and there's always a wall full of business cards in chip shops, isn't there? It's as if like that's the place to go if you need anything. Go to the chip shop, right?
Not seen many magicians, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, there is one in Ramsbottom, I'll tell you. I nip in every so often.
Yeah, usually ironing and cleaning and maybe
the normal trades. Yeah, the regular trades.
Yeah, very useful services, but not magician.
Yeah, absolutely. Magician, you never know. So that's kind of, I think that was the tipping point. That's when I realised. But to be honest, it's then balancing that against, I always wanted to kind of then do the creative stuff when I was at school. So, I was good at graphic design and stuff like that. So I did that as a GCSE, but my parents were kind of like, well, that won't get you anywhere, will it? So you're wrong, Mum. So I did GCSE, that kind of graphic design. I wanted to do art, wasn't allowed because you couldn't do art and graphic design at the same time in my school. I wanted to do drama, but that was full of the cool kids. So I wasn't allowed to do drama because they handpicked all the cool kids with, whatever. I wasn't one of the cool kids, believe it or not. I did magic, was ginger, had glasses and was good at science. I was not one of the cool kids. So I couldn't do that. And so when I kind of went to college, I thought, I know what I'll do at college. I'll do graphics. I'll do art because I can. And my mum was like, no, you're not. You're going to do the sciences because you're good at science. And I was like, yeah, I'm good at it, but I don't really like it. And she went, no, you're doing it. So I ended up... I did the worst A levels anyone can imagine. So I did A level physics, chemistry, biology, and English language, and I got good grades, but I didn't enjoy it. And so I was constantly battling what my parents expected of me because I was a clever kid and what I actually wanted to do in my life.
Yeah, crikey! I mean that is a battle that must rage. I'm not even going to say in the world. I'm not even going to say in the UK. Worldwide. That must be a battle that rages all the time. And I can understand it. Being a parent myself now, I can probably empathise a little bit more than I might have done back in the day.
Yeah,
but I do remember actually, because my mum was absolutely, you will go to university, and I was at college doing A levels and got through a year and hated every second of it.
Yeah.
And in school, how you do it or you get beaten to a pulp kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you go to college and doing A levels, and literally almost overnight, it's, well, if you don't do it, it's up to you. What?
Yeah,
I needed
absolutely. Totally different.
I needed the discipline. So I was always, if you don't go to university, you amount to nothing. So I got like senior. Totally. Yeah, I got quite senior in the corporate world, and there was a time when I got a pretty good job, and I took a picture of my first pay slip, and I sent it to her and just said, "See."
Did it?
And she came back and went, "Point taken." So we took it on board. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, like, I had a similar. I remember the conversation I had with my mum and dad after university, because I went to uni to do. I've got a biology degree. I ended up doing biology because I was supposed to do medicine. I bottled on that. I just said, look, I don't want to do it. So I ended up applying to do biological sciences, which is kind of like biology but with mixed in chemistry. And then halfway through that course, I went, not really enjoying this. I'll just do straight biology. So I ended up with a biology degree, and I remember coming out of uni into a recession. It was into, I graduated in 2008 into the recession, and there were no jobs. There was nothing. And I just turned around to mum and dad and went, magic? I was like, well,
like you do.
Yeah. And I thought, when's the best time to start a business? Well, in a recession, because if it fails, I can blame it on that.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, something a lot of people will be doing in the next 12 months, I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
COVID killed me. That's going to be a very common, whether it did or it didn't. In fact, if you look at a lot of the high street companies that are closing and reducing jobs and such like, a lot of them were in trouble before all this kicked off.
Yeah. I think it's been a nail in the coffin for a lot of big high street brands, which have ridden on the coattails of a very affluent 90s. The high street has bit, for lack of a better term, on its arse for a good 10 to 15 years. Yeah. And I think this is really, like I say, been the nail in the coffin for a lot of big brands who have either failed to evolve over time, or have chosen not to because that costs too much money and the shareholders want profit. Yeah. So they've just not been, in my opinion, some of them just haven't been smart enough. No, they haven't. I mean, we've talked about the need to adapt, and we're obviously having a chat about a few projects and what have you around adapting too, aren't we? Absolutely. About immersive events, and can things be done online? Can't they be done online? Yeah. We've got various other conversations we're having, and I think we're probably a very good example of just meeting of minds and just thinking, how can we collaborate? There's no conversations about, right, okay, let's set up a limited company. Let's, how much are you going to get? How much am I going to get? It's just an element of, well, let's kind of play if we trust each other. And that's obviously critical. What might we do that could be fun? And you make, if worst case scenario, you make a friend out of it or a connection. Yeah. Totally. Sometimes you got to throw a few things in the fire, haven't you, and see what happens. And I think adapting at the moment is a big thing. I mean, I don't think, I'm not going to lie, it's not been easy. I don't want people to watch this and think, oh yeah, he did this, and all of a sudden he's like running this really successsul business. No, I'm not. It's been really hard, really hard. I've had weeks where I think I said this to you on the phone the other day. I've had weeks where I've just stared at the TV and gone, what am I doing with my life? But that's what I mean about having these creative blocks almost. It's almost like having writer's block. As an author, I've got a creative block where I've got nothing stimulating that part of my brain. So, and that's the part of my brain which I've always relied on. That's got me through. It's got me through shit. It's got me through high school. It's got me through operations. And it's not there anymore. And so, obviously, when you do meet someone, when I bumped into yourself, it was kind of like, oh my God, someone who thinks like me, someone who's got that spark at the moment. And I nabbed a bit of that spark and went, ugh, and it's almost like I jolted into life like Frankenstein's monster. I just kind of came to life a little bit. And I remember the first time I met you, I was just like, shooting out ideas like a Tommy gun. And it was just because it was almost like a release. It was almost cathartic. It was like this built up, pent up creativity that my mind had, is clearly that part had just nailed a close sign on itself for 2 months. And all of a sudden, all it needed was someone to pry out that nail. The sign fell off, and all of a sudden, poof, all the ideas came flooding out.
Yeah. Well, I as you say, I'm like you. I'm very much ideas orientated. What I've learned over the years, or had to learn over the years, is in a sense is to, as quickly as possible, prioritize what is actually going to be doable, workable, affordable. Because the great danger is, I don't know if you've experienced this, is that you end up spinning in this world of ideas. But you don't actually implement or execute anything, or at least choose the right things to put your time and energy into. And if and before you know it, a year's gone by, and as they all say, and it's true, is ideas are to a penny.
Absolutely,
it's the execution and the implementation that makes the difference.
Ideas are cheap. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I actually go to bed with a notebook and pen on my bedside table.
I remember you saying that.
And it's because I will wake up with ideas. I will wake up with, I don't know how many ideas. Sometimes I wake up with a solution to a problem, which is nice. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of programming for some kind of new effects and props and things like that. I was stuck on a problem, and I woke up literally with the solution. I was like, quick, write it down. And sure enough, it worked. So clearly in my sleep, my brain's still doing stuff, which is great, very handy. Does mean you wake up a little bit tired, but apart from that, if we could go for a jog every so often as well, that'd be nice. Get me in shape. But it's I think it's, at the moment, I think collaboration is important. I think a lot of people, when they have ideas, are scared to share them. They're scared to talk about them because it's mine. It's my idea.
Oh,
it's my idea.
Yes.
And it's like, well, but your idea is not worth shit unless you do anything with it.
Yes.
And if you collaborate with people, you never know who's going to link you to something else. If I say I'm interested in this, it's amazing who out there goes, it's funny, I met this person who's really good at this thing. And all of a sudden, can I have their number? And all of a sudden you've got something, and that idea turns into something genuinely good, as opposed to just being shelved up here as I had a great idea once. Well, so what?
That's so true. And a guy called Simon Woodruff, I interviewed a guy called Simon Woodruff, who's the founder, and I think he might have sold it now, but he was the founder of Yo Sushi originally.
Oh yeah.
He's quite well known, but he was saying that to me, actually. He was saying that so many people go to him with sign this NDA, sign this non-disclosure agreement, and he just says, get out of here.
You get laughed out of the room.
When he was doing Yo Sushi, he was telling anybody and everybody that would listen. And because on the basis that he just knew he was going to execute it, and that one way or another it would be proven. Because of course, back in the day, and people won't realize this, but back in the day, sushi bars was something that you might have seen if you'd been to Tokyo.
Yeah, totally.
Might have seen. So the idea, you remember him telling me about the talking to this investor guy about these conveyor belts and how the food was going to come around on conveyor belts. And he said the guy was looked at me as if to say, "You're mate, you have lost your marble." Yeah. And now, of course, it's mainstream and normal.
Yeah. Now you don't bat an eyelid. Yeah.
Exactly. One thing I was going to pick up on, actually, is something you said, which I think you said it you kind of said it very quickly, but I think it's worth picking up on. Because you talked about you practiced, and you just said, I practiced.
Yeah.
What level of dedication have you had to have in terms of practicing those magic tricks to the point where you can do them so well that people who are looking for you, looking for the trick? Yeah. How much practice have you had to do in order to get close to that level of professionalism and capability?
It's a good question. I think if you want a good foundation in being able to do magic, then it's not just magic you need to learn. So I think that's one of the kind of big, almost misnomers of I've said that totally wrong, of kind of, just brush over that. But I'll call back to it as well. Why not? About magic is that if you learn a card trick, you become a magician. If you can do a card trick, you're a magician.
Yeah.
Whereas if, I do a paint by numbers, I'm not an artist. I can just copy something, right? And that's the thing with magic, is it encompasses more than just being able to learn a card trick. In my opinion, magic is an entire performance art. So you need to learn how to speak properly, how to, hold a good conversation with someone, which has nothing to do with magic. You need to know how to approach people, how to break the ice, for lack of a cliche. You need to know how to hold yourself on stage. You need to know good practices. You need to know what stage left and stage right is. You need to know, you need to have very good interpersonal skills, incredibly good interpersonal skills, where you know how far you can push it with any individual without stepping over a line. And that's a lot of people don't have that in any business generally. And that's part of kind of what I talk about in my leadership training stuff, is a lot of people fail to have these core skills, which as a magician, as a real magician, are second nature. That is just pre-programmed. That's there. Yeah. And that just comes from doing it lots and lots and lots and lots and failing a lot. Yeah. I think, I've definitely been in situations, luckily not in paid. Well, actually, there has been a couple of paid gigs where things have failed. Where actually live on stage, something's gone wrong. But that's when the performer in you can rise above that and use it to your advantage. Make it funny, dodge, duck, and dive. Do whatever you can just to get out of that. So I'm going to tell you, actually, it happened a few weeks ago. So just after they announced that you could have events back on again, before then completely U-turning in Manchester and saying you can't. Yeah. So I actually got booked to do a garden party for someone, and I turned up and they wanted, I did a 45-minute cabaret show, right? Outdoors, right? Which is always a nightmare anyway. Outdoors is a nightmare for a magician. We hate outdoors. Well, I do anyway. So it can get messy, especially with breezes, the wind, nightmare. Yeah. But anyway, I've set up the stage. I'm an hour and a half before I need to perform. I've set up the stage. I've done all my sound and lights, and I've done my tech run through. I've done my audio. I'm all good. I'm set to go. I then come to do the performance. I get to this one part of the act, and there should have been a little envelope and a card behind the easel on stage that I just grab and I hand to someone, and they write something down on it. I definitely put it there, 100% put it there. But the wind had decided it wasn't going to be there. And so I reached behind this easel and it wasn't there. And that's immediately when I realized this is blown away. My spare is in my case in that room over there. Oh, no.
And was that moment when you realized, was it one of those moments of, oh my God, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Your heart sinks as a performer.
Yeah.
But then your adrenaline kicks in and you go, right, performer mode, go, 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 go. And, hilariously, I just turned around to everyone and just went, ladies and gentlemen, it appears as though the wind has blown one of my special props away. I'll be back in just a jiffy. And I ran off stage going, would you like a narration? I'm going through the door. I'm grabbing this thing. And I can hear people laughing. And I was like, don't worry, everyone. I found it. Get off me. What the hell is this rabbit doing in here? There was no rabbit, obviously. But I'm just making stuff up to make people laugh. And I come running back out with this envelope. I've got the envelope. And everyone cheers. Yeah. And then in we go. Carried on like nothing had happened. And it's that ability.
That's a massive skill, that though, isn't it?
But that is the skill, I think, the real skill of a magician. Yeah. Any idiot can learn a card trick. Don't get me wrong. I know some sleights of hand which have taken me 13, 14 years to perfect. Not even joking. And those things come in handy and those things look amazing, but they're not paramount to the success of being a great magician. So there's the amount of time you put into learning magic itself, but then there's the amount of time you put into self-development, which I think is infinitely more important than how much effort you put into the magic. There you go.
That's really interesting. I'm just looking here. There's a question here from a guy called Donovan, and I guess he's in the performing arts or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but he's just basically saying, do you think that international events will come back as to how they were? It's an interesting question, that, isn't it? I suppose the idea of traveling around the world to a conference, which I've done, I'm sure you've done.
Yeah.
Blimey, yeah.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I mean, to be honest, at the moment, I know performers who are out in Spain performing at events that are playing on stages. Yeah. In fact, I've got a magician friend of mine at the moment who's in the Caribbean, I believe, performing on a stage doing a socially distant magic show. So I think there's a market for it. I think there will be. I think it will come back. Will they be better regulated? Yes. Will they be as easy as they used to be? No. We can cross our fingers, I think. But I would imagine, if I'm being honest, I would imagine most things to come back exactly the way they were, bar a few extra hurdles that you might need to jump.
Yeah.
Because I can't see the world. I think generally we're quite, I say we, as in the human race, I think we're quite, it's easy, isn't it, to go back to the way things were. It's easy. That's easy. It's hard to change what goes on. It's hard to change stuff, whereas it's easy to go back. So I think once this clears up, once a vaccine or once it just eradicates itself or, whatever, I think we'll just go, right, okay, so that event we had planned for September, it's going ahead then. Yeah, it's going ahead. I honestly think that will just happen.
Yeah.
Because it's easier than going, right, how can we prevent this from happening in the future? Which I don't think those conversations will happen. Not on a meaningful level to the public.
No, I think that's true.
I think they might happen behind closed doors, but
no, I think that's absolutely true. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, a lot of companies have been looking at and trying to work out how to do virtual events. Yeah, as I know we've discussed before.
Yeah,
and they're managing to do it, but it's nothing like it would be. Yeah, obviously in a live environment.
Yeah, I think you said the word right, managing.
Yes.
No one puts on an event wanting to manage it.
No.
You want it to be absolutely knockout.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, but I suppose knockout is a relative term, isn't it? So knockout before COVID and knockout after COVID is possibly a different,
totally different thing.
Everything's relative in those terms, isn't it? I mean, you'd have never got excited about, say, I don't know, going watching a football. Well, you would get excited about going watching a football.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
Not certainly, possibly not going to see your brother playing on the on the local Rad Rec when it's about -4 degrees and pissing down. Yeah. But now it's possible that you would actually get really excited about that because it's like,
I think that's the one thing that actually for the entertainment industry, which has suffered massively, like the whole entertainment industry has, whether it be music, theatre, arts, dance, magicians, whatever, anything artistic in the events industry has suffered massively during this.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been very little support for those companies, but if there's one thing that comes out of it, it's the appreciation from the public for how important those things are in society generally, whether it be music, whether it be live gigs, whether it be theatre. The idea of going to see something live, I think, is only going to become more special, more important, and therefore the people running those events will be able to do so knowing that some audiences will pay even a premium or pay a good amount to see live because they appreciate how difficult it is to put on a live show. Whereas I think in the past, it's been spoiled. I mean, how many festivals, how many events, how many, all of these things that just happen, and we just accept it. We get used to it. It's the new normal. We go, there's hundreds of events on. There's loads of gigs. I live in pretty much middle of Manchester. There's a gig every night. There's probably 5-10 gigs a night in different venues. Spoiled. Now, if one gig happens, I guarantee if Park Life was to be announced tonight, it'd sell out by in the morning. Yeah. Because people appreciate and want live, and I think ultimately that's only good thing that can come out of this for the entertainment industry is that people will value live entertainment more than they've ever done before.
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely true, and I think it's generally true of human nature that we do take a lot for granted. You know, we take family for granted. We take certainly take parents for granted. You know, I was very lucky to have a very good, solid, caring upbringing by two loving parents. I was lucky to have that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, you know, I took it for granted. You know, I'd be on the phone to my mum and dad when I wanted to tap them up for a few quid.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, just like us Mancunians can be sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, but there's various reasons I kind of suddenly appreciated them more, which I bore everybody with. But I think it's true generally of things. If you get it taken away, all of a sudden you realise that. Like my broadband this morning.
Absolutely, and now you've just realised how important it was to speak to me.
I have, absolutely have. Right, Sam. Listen, we'll call it a day there because I know I could talk to you for a lot longer. But we've got plenty there.
We've been going 50 minutes. What are you talking about?
Well, exactly.
we can do 3 days straight.
You've not even started your magic show yet.
I brought some Red Bull with me. I'm ready. I'm like.
Brilliant, mate. Well, thanks very much for joining me today. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm doing in September. I want to try and get a few other guests together on a panel discussion.
Awesome. Yeah, cool.
So just get everybody together and we'll talk about and put the world to rights and such like. So I'd be delighted if you'd be open to that and up for that. So just finally then, just tell us, how do people get hold of you if they do want to do an outside event where they want the wind to blow everything away? For example,
it's hilarious. It's a great act.
How do they get in touch with you and find out more about you?
Basically, I mean, so this thing here, just if you whack in Sam Fitton Magician into Google, I'll be the top hit, hopefully. If I'm not, then let me know. But you can just head to samfitton.com, or I'm at Sam Fitton Magic on every single social media platform. So if you whack that into Google, you'll find me. Or if you whack in Manchester Magician, I think I'm the top hit for that as well, which is quite handy. But yeah, just whack in my name, Sam Fitton Magician, and you'll find me. And yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Sam, thanks ever so much for joining me today. Thanks for getting me through to 24 days of live streaming. I don't know, what I've got left now then, about 7 days left, and finishing it on a bank holiday on the 31st of August. And I'll be exhausted. Actually, a guy did message me yesterday and he said, I bet you'll be glad when this is all over, won't you? I do enjoy it and I love it, but it does create some pressure when you've got to do it every day. But that's the whole idea, is to create that pressure and to create that discipline.
Well, it gives you a reason, right? Because you've got to do it.
Yeah, and meeting great people like your good self, and and getting great guests on. So, thanks again, then, mate, and I will talk to you again very soon.
Take care.